Thank you, Buffalo Street Books, for this wonderful service that you give to the community. We're so grateful. And it is my absolute privilege to introduce Alice McDowell, author of the brand new book, Your Royal Nature, Inspiring Essays to Find Your Way Home. And I've known Alice over 30 years. I know. A teacher, spiritual guide, inspiration, read her wonderful first two books and now the third. Friend, as most of you know her vast resume from being a mathematician and a statistical analyst in the New York Financial District to getting a Ph.D. in theology, mother of two sons, to an award-winning religious studies professor at Ithaca College, where she taught for 18 years, from training with, with incredible Buddhists and Sufis and mystics, contemplative Christians, transpersonal psychologists and healers, to pulling on her mud boots and sweeping the steps down to a little hut where she met with spiritual seekers one at a time for 25, 30, 40 years, listening to us, guiding us, asking really tough questions that we didn't always like, but that invited us into a much deeper life. Her resume also includes, with her husband, envisioning, financing, building, and running a world-class retreat center down the road in Van Etten. If you haven't been there, you need to. Plus, she developed programs for personal transformation called, this one particularly is called Hidden Treasure, that have profoundly affected hundreds of people's lives, including my own. And then she wrote a book about it, how to do it, so that that could keep going throughout all of time. She may appear incredibly tiny on the outside, but Alice's inner life, her life force, her light is enormous dynamite. So the day I bought her book, this one, which we're launching today, I also bought a Lego book for our daughter, How to Build Everything, Clear Directions for Building 200 Things with Legos. Alice, I don't think you're a Lego person, but you are a master builder of everything that is important. You create clear directions for building an inner life, a spiritual path, a purpose, a wise and practical and joyful being. Thank you. Now, if any of you have ever had that amorphous, I'm spiritual but not religious, but don't ask me what that means feeling, then you will want to read this book, Your Royal Nature, Inspirational Essays to Find Your Way Home. These are not esoteric. These essays are wisdom stories. They are distilled, though, from decades of your studies, your teachings, your participation in meditation and other spiritual practices. They come out of the reality of being a teacher, dealing with academia, being a businesswoman, raising family, dealing with tough life experiences, and being incredibly present with people who are longing for purpose and depth in our everyday human lives. So reading each essay is like hanging out with a very wise friend. I've read them, but my next intention is to read one and ponder the question for a while until those insights sink in, because it is, every word really is an insight. This book was going to sit on my nightstand, and no offense, Alice, but it might even spend some time in the bathroom. It is that good. And I think all of us here who know you want to thank you for doing so much inner work in your life that your writings radiate that well-won wisdom. It is a gift for us, and you're a gift to us. Thank you.
So about 4 years ago, Larry and I were walking the hills of the retreat center, and this idea, your royal nature, just suddenly came in. And I knew it was going to be the title of my next book, but I had no idea what would be the contents of this book. But I found out. Here it is. Your royal nature comes from a poem by Hafiz, a 14th century Sufi. And I thought I'd read you the whole thing. Only part of it appears in the book because it's a little controversial. Let's see. It's called Venus Just Asked Me. Perhaps for just 1 minute out of a day, you may be of value to torture yourself with thoughts like, I should be doing a hell of a lot more with my life than I am, because I'm so damn talented. But remember, just 1 minute out of the day. With all the rest of your time, it would be best to try to look upon yourself more as God does. He knows your true royal nature. God is never confused and can only see himself in you. My dear, Venus just leaned down and asked me to tell you a secret. To confess, she's just a mirror of who has been stealing your light and music for centuries. She knows, as does Hafiz, you are the sole heir to the king. And I want to add queen to that. So this whole idea of kings came up because I was going to be putting a crown on top of the O in royal. And who's listening to now, my dear editor and book developer, Jill Swenson, she said, I don't think that's a good idea with the No King's March and everything. So I had to change it. And I asked my son Sean, who's listening, and Melinda Matzel, who's my director of pictures and design, and they helped with the cover. Asked them what they could come up with to change it so it's not a crown, but gives the same idea. And that's this part here. I don't know if you can see it.
I'm not quite sure. Can't really get too close.
Okay.
That close.
But anyway, and I really like it. At first I didn't. I wanted the crown that I thought of. But now I like it because it's more than an earthly crown, which what it symbolizes anyway. Okay, so what does your royal nature mean? Some traditions call it final awakening, the kingdom of heaven, the Shekinah, the Buddha nature, or your liberated state of consciousness. It's a shift in consciousness that takes you to a place of peace, of there-ness, and a realization that everything is okay. In addition to helping you discover your royal nature, your way back home, the book also emphasizes all aspects of the journey. I thought the short essays would be a boon to those who want to grow spiritually, but don't have much time. And that almost means all of us, in a way. So these books, and I think you said that, Rebecca, that if you're on the go or that, they're short essays for you to read and digest. The essays are divided into 7 sections, and it was kind of fun to figure out what those sections should be and to see what essays go under what section. So I want to talk about each section and some of the essays that fall under each one. The first one is inspirations, the first section. And this shows the many ways that the sacred, the spiritual, the higher reality enters into our lives. And the kinds of experiences that people have, and I'm sure you've all had. A time where I call eternal moments, when it's such a moment that you never forget it. It's so deep and profound. And the two essays connected with this are Music of the Spheres and The Holy Book of Nature. I just picked out a few of the essays that go under each category. Healing the Body-Mind is the next one. It's important to clear your psychological stuff in order to connect more easily with your royal nature. It frees you from stuck places, helps you become more authentic, and live a happier life. And I find clearing the mind-body of stuff is a lifelong process. My other two books explore this clearing a lot more than this one, but it's really important. And as I looked over the essays in the book, I found that I often said some of the ways to deal with this issue that I was talking about. Clear your psychological stuff. Clear your psychological stuff. So that's a very important aspect of the journey. So two essays here are The Need to Be Right, and we do need to be right. If you ever notice that even if you have a different idea of what happened in the past than who you're speaking with, you feel somehow, I'm the one that's right. You know, why? And that's because being right and winning got kudos all through your life. And so you feel you have to do that. And also the self-identity trap. We'll talk about that, I think, a little bit later. The third section is Spirituality Within. Shows the dynamics of the spiritual path. I think you'll find the scope of this in a few more of the essays. One is discerning your life purpose. Another is recognizing your true guidance. Often our true guidance is really what we want to hear, but what we think is the true guidance is what we want to hear, or we block what is the true guidance because we don't want to hear. So there's a lot of discernment needed in recognizing your guidance. Another one is enlightenment and surrender. And I like Anthony DeMello's saying, enlightenment is absolute cooperation with the inevitable. Absolute cooperation with the inevitable. It's not how you usually hear about enlightenment. Opening to light and how to be a nobody. The last one comes from Ram Dass, who I heard say, all my life I've been practicing to be somebody, but now I'm practicing to be nobody. I wonder if somebody asked you, what are you doing these days? And you say, I'm practicing to be nobody. I wonder what response you'd get from that. Being a nobody means that you are beyond words, beyond identities, beyond anything that can be put into words. Opening the heart is the next section. And to realize that love is all around you, but you often don't see it. One of the titles of this essay is called The Ocean of Love and the Thirsty Fish. That's kind of what happens to us. We're looking out there for something when it's really inside us in all its glory. And this comes from a Rumi poem called A Basket of Fresh Bread. And here's what part of it is. There is a milk fountain inside you. Don't walk around like an empty bucket. You have a channel into the ocean. and yet you ask for water from a little pool. There is a basket of fresh bread on your head, and yet you go door to door asking for crusts. I love that one. Yeah. Knock on your inner door, no other. I love the imagery there. I mean, you can just imagine this big, fat bread on your head, and you, can I have a little crust? That's what we do. We want this great all to be from somebody else and not our inner door. So I asked you, do you believe there's a basket of fresh bread on your head? Are you that full? Some other essays from this section is Realizing Your Love and The Secret of Romantic Love. I won't say anything more because you have to read the book to find out the secret. The next section is Spirituality in Action. It explores how to live a spiritual life in an often chaotic world. Does that sound familiar? It also addresses the impact the spiritual life has on others, how you affect others as you grow spiritually. So one of the essays is a recipe for coping with the world in crisis. Another one, Refuge from the Storm. And another one, The Pull of Radiant Souls. Later life is the sixth section. And it's one of the most important stages of the spiritual life because it's now or never. There's more time to turn towards spiritual growth if you choose to. It explores aging with grace and how to face the many challenges that aging presents. Two essays are titled New Role as Elder and the Spiritual Growth in Later Life. The last section is called The Larger Picture and examines those great life issues, including essays such as The Fundamental Cause of Suffering, States of Consciousness, Your Expanded Self, and Divine Play. After I completed the Divine Play essay, I realized that the book needed more lightness to it because these are very serious kind of themes. And yet I didn't want to leave out the levity. Teresa of Avila said, God preserve us from frowning saints. And I contacted Chris Dunham, who was my illustrator for Hidden Treasure book and a friend, to see if she could create some journeys for this book, to look at it and smile, you know. So she did, and if you have the book, you'll see some of her illustrations. And then thinking about the spiritual path and levity, lightness, I thought of this nun who's a friend of mine, Sister Placid, who was Mother Superior of Transfiguration Monastery just south of Binghamton. When she visited a Zen monastery at one point, she looked around and everybody was this and very solemn, which I asked my retreatants to do on a group retreat so you don't distract. But anyway, this was going on, this was going on. Finally, she went up to somebody, tapped on the shoulder and said, "Excuse me, where's the joy?" So I always liked that little poem. And then I thought of another one that I couldn't resist sharing with you. She and Sister Donald, who I went to graduate school with, were traveling for fundraising. And Placid got up to go to the ladies' room. And Sister Donald was sitting there, and she's not coming back. So she got up and went towards the ladies' room to see what was going on. Turns out she was playing pinball with her truck drivers. and she said to one of them, "Obviously your life isn't in order. Let me show you. So she pulls a thing, round and round, bullseye. And they looked at her and said, "What kind of lady are you? And would you like to go to Las Vegas with us?" So that was placid. Here is somebody who is free. She wasn't playing the role of nun, of that you can't have fun, that you can't be different from what you are supposed to be. So she walked her talk. She really did. Your Royal Nature contains more of my personal experiences than any of the other two books, and I hope they will invite you to reflect on your life and think about what your experiences mean to you. I thought it might be fun, the opposite word, to explore one of these essays in more detail. This way, you get even more a sense of what the book has to offer. This essay is the first one in the book, and it's called The True Meaning of Holy. You might understand holy as purity, saintly, divinity, but that's only one dimension. There's something that underlies it. And here Rudolf Otto, in his book, The Idea of the Holy, he was a theologian and comparative religionist, and he describes three aspects of the holy. The first one, creature feeling. The holy is so vast that you feel very small in comparison. If you think about watching the night stars or going to the Grand Canyon, you get an idea of that. It is so vast, and you are so small in comparison to that. So that's one aspect of holy. Second one is, he calls the mysterium tremendum. And I love that term, mysterium tremendum. Okay, so what is this? It has something to do with things being extraordinary, uncanny, and scary. Examples are earthquakes or tornadoes, thunderstorms, volcanoes. You know the power that is in these things. That's part of the holy, that kind of power. And the third dimension is fascination. Even though you want to hide from tornadoes or anything, yet in this is a fascination. And I'm thinking of the 11th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, where the warrior Arjuna experiences Krishna, the God, in his essence. It was so profound that Isaac Oppenheimer quoted from the Gita when he saw the first atomic bomb blast. And yet, he sees Krishna in all his glory, and yet he says, "I yearn to see thee again. Show it to me again." That's where the fascination is. It's scary and overwhelming, and yet you're drawn to that holiness that Krishna described or was. So there are the three: creature feeling, mysterium tremendum, and fascination. Now, I would think that most temples and churches would be full if their ministers expressed even a part of that holiness. Knowing about this idea of holy, you can begin to understand some of the spiritual encounters in the Bible. And usually when there's, an angel appears or God appears or whatever, it's followed by the sentence, "and they were afraid." And you begin to know what that means, that they were afraid, if it's that powerful. It also brings deeper meaning to the prayer, "Hallowed be thy name." And the chilling element, although diluted, is reflecting in Halloween, ghost stories, watching horror movies. All that evokes some of the sense of the holy. And I think daredevil feats, such as firewalking or skydiving, attempts to connect to the holy, even though they wouldn't say that was the case. But you can begin to understand why. Spiritual Sufi master Pirvalai Khan, in The Way of a Dervish, describes his own encounter with a, quote, far-out dervish who had eyes of fire. You just imagine that, meeting somebody like that. And he continues by saying, quote, it's all part of the encounter with something that is so strong that it transforms you, shatters your sense of yourself, and perplexes you. It's so challenging to your way of thinking that it leaves a mark on you, and you can never be the same. So this is what the holy really is. And my last sentence on this essay is, previously you may have felt that to be holy, you needed to be calm, completely good, and totally sweet. But now you might want to expand this view to include your inner fire and power. You might want to become a magnetic, majestic, and cosmic holy one. That's the challenge. Amen.